Nobody spams our community but us.
Now recording.
All right. Welcome, everybody, to the
Welcome.
Wednesday, November 15th, 2023, Aladdin DAO Community Call. We are happy you're here. We've got some new faces and some old faces.
Yep. And welcome if you're listening later in the recording, as I assume everybody does. I think one of the most streamed audio on Spotify, if I have my information correct here.
Man, that is stunning. That is stunning.
It's surprising. I was surprised, but it's somebody told me that, and I believe them. So,
especially since we put zero effort into putting it on Spotify.
Yeah.
Okay, well, let's get right into it with the protocol that everybody is just really excited about right now. FX.
FFX. Yeah. Boy, we got a lot to talk about with FFX this week. The big one is the first revenue distribution is coming up. So we've been sitting on this growing pile of revenue. And when we tweeted about it, I tried to, the intern tried to give this impression of this is us bootstrapping, right? And I've talked about this in other community calls before, how Aladdin products tend to not explode into the market with a bajillion shills and the way that our products go is organic growth, right? And so because that's not the only way that crypto projects grow, maybe even not the common way, I try to give this impression of we start out, we're starting at zero, and we're starting at zero TVL and zero revenue and zero in the treasury, and growing sort of an accelerating growth of revenue as the TVL and the volume both increase. And it's kind of cool to think about, the FFX, and we'll talk about this in a second, but how the way that the protocol is structured is that there's these two parallel sources of revenue. One is the staking yields, and then the other is the minting and redeeming fees. And each of them are driven by different aspects of how these tokens are used. So obviously staking yields are driven by TVL, whereas mint redeem fees are driven by volume. And you can have a lot of different conditions in the market where one might dominate over the other, but you always have both of those kind of covering for each other. So it's kind of cool. And the revenue has been accelerating, and we've been sitting on this pile of staked ETH, and it's time to get it into the hands of VEFXN holders.
Yeah, you know what? I'm going to put in the chat here, I'm going to put a cool website that not a lot of people know about. It's the sort of all the data that you can get on minting and redeeming and the events that it occurred. And it's just kind of a really neat kind of location for people to go and see that stuff, as it's happening, so they can kind of get a sense of the proportions of minting and redeeming of the various tokens. And so that CMS website's really cool. It's kind of hidden, and
yeah. Well, I mean, let's keep it just for our insiders. Yeah, just for our insiders on the call today. You guys check it out, and we'll call that that's some benefit of showing up on the community call or listening later, but mostly showing up, being in the Discord. What can I say?
There you go.
Yeah. So what are the details, KMEX, of this first distribution?
Well, I mean, basically, if everybody, if you wanted to be a part of this, you can lock your FX in on the FX site, just plain vanilla VE locking, or you can do it through Convex or StakeDAO, and the locking needs to be done by 23:59 UTC tonight. And then the distribution will occur next week from FX.
Yeah, and so the kind of the two key dates that you need to understand. So basically the sort of snapshot or the locking snapshot happens tonight at 23:59, as you say. The actual tokens will go to lockers next week. This is a little bit different than the way that the protocol is going to work going forward. So I'll just take a second to comment on this. So essentially what's happened is, for people who've been following along, we have this pending audit right now. Aladdin never puts any code on mainnet that has not that's not been audited. And so we have a bunch of changes to the protocol. It started out as a couple of changes, and basically the audit has like grown and grown and grown, but because we've been adding sort of more of these features and trying to squeeze them in on that same audit. And so one of the earliest features that we were adding that's sort of in the current audit is the ability to distribute revenue as wrapped staked ETH. The original code was written for staked ETH, but basically through the process of talking with our friends who are doing the liquid wrappers, the wrapped staked ETH makes their lives much easier. And so basically they requested, and we are happy to do it, to have all of the revenue distribution be in wrapped staked ETH, so it's not a rebasing token. And those changes were made in the code quite a while ago and added to this. But then a bunch of other things that we've been talking about over the last weeks have been added to the audit, and they've had the effect of kind of delaying the audit results. And so rather than continue to delay the first revenue distribution until we get that audit, which is still a few weeks out, we figured we would do a manual dump just as we've got it here. We want to call it a goodwill thing for the community. Just make sure that everybody understands that there's no games being played here. It's just a technical delay of having the revenue flow automatically to VE token lockers. So we are manually taking the pile of revenue the protocol has made so far and distributing it through the fee distributor in a lump sum. Once that audit that I talked about has come back, and we deploy the new wrapped staked ETH revenue distribution code, then it'll be automated and it won't be this like infrequent dump situation.
Yeah. So just keep your eyes peeled for that, but be sure 23:59 UTC tonight. So figure out what that is in your time zone and go lock it up in your preferred wrapper, or
lock it up as you like, or you may want to extend your lock too. I don't know. Probably not. I don't know that VEFXN has been out long enough that you need to extend your lock if you locked early, but that's a thing you might want to do in the future or now. I don't know. I'm not your mother. Make your own decisions.
That's the alpha right there. Kruger is not your mother. You can tweet that out.
I am not your mother. I'm also not your father, but that's okay. So
noted.
I mean,
okay.
you should be so lucky. Is the
there you go? Yeah,
exactly. To have a dad like me. I'm really better at being a dad to a 10-year-old than a adult, but maybe by the time I'm a dad to an adult, I'll be better at it. Next up, before we get into the weeds of Kruger's patented parenting advice.
Yes.
I did this little diagram up. I'm going to share it if I can find it. Here it is. I tweeted it out, and but I will share this diagram with you guys. And I thought that this, it's actually as simple as the diagram is, or as the flow is. It's easy to misunderstand. And so I did this Sankey diagram. I had to first of all had to ask ChatGPT what this kind of diagram is called by describing it, and then ChatGPT helped me out. And so I created this Sankey flow diagram to give people an idea of how f of x revenues and basically what all the different flows look like, and where the yields are coming from for VEFXN. I feel like for protocols like us, that are not playing dirty, to put it bluntly, we benefit. The more people understand how it works, the more the protocol benefits, right? We don't benefit by not having things clearly understood. And so, trying to, especially things like revenue flow, I want to make that nice and clear. So I posted this thing in the chat. There's two main source of income for the protocol on the far left side, where the minting and redeeming fees, which are of course staked ETH denominated, and then the reserve yields, which are staked ETH denominated. And so the reserve yields grow as the TVL grows, and the mint and redeem fees are based on the amount of minting and redeeming, obviously the volume of the volume. And of course, that minting and redeeming may be by arbitrageurs who are arbitraging to a liquidity pool. So even if people are swapping a lot in secondary markets, it's still going to drive that primary liquidity as the arbitrage bots do their business. So those two things are the main sources of income. 100% of the minting and redeeming fees flow into what we call platform revenue, whereas the reserve yields are divided. Half of them flow up into the platform revenue, the other half down to the rebalance pool. Continuing with platform revenue, you can see that the fraction of reserve yields and the minting and redeeming fees are combined, and then that total platform revenue is divided. 75% goes to VEFXN holders as revenue distribution, and then 25% goes down to what we're calling a treasury reserve. Now, speaking of the audits, one of the key things that's coming from that audit is some code that allows us to automatically use that money in the treasury reserve in order to reinforce the protocol stability if we ever enter into stability mode. So we'll talk more about that. We've talked about it in the past. We'll talk more about it in the future when the code's actually deployed. But basically, it's just some additional minting and redeeming incentives for people who support the platform stability on those times when it could become vulnerable if suddenly a lot of XETH got redeemed and the collateral ratio floated too high.
Yeah.
So the treasury reserve is really just primarily it's just an additional like built-in stability mechanism. The main point is we pipe most of that revenue to VEFXN. And then the last thing is that the rebalance pool yields, we haven't done this yet, but it is coming. Our FXN token has not begun any kind of liquidity mining yet. We've talked about that in the past, how like the protocol functions perfectly without any kind of liquidity mining. And so as we start emitting FXN tokens, we are going to be able to just kind of apply them in the place that really encourages the most growth. And one of the gauges that we will certainly have is FXN emissions to augment the rebalance pool yields and push those up a little bit. So sitting and farming in the rebalance pool will earn you that real yield staked ETH, like, holy cow, I'm earning ETH with a stable coin, as well as FXN to bump it up. So
yeah, so just one little caveat there that you mentioned about farming yields. Currently, there is one place where you can be farming FXN tokens right now, and that's on the OKX platform.
Oh,
So,
right. Yes.
yeah.
Yeah. Good
So-
point. Good point.
So people are encourage you to go, if you have access to OKX to check that out, because they're offering a pretty good APR on farming FXN right now. So
And OKX, they've been in the news a little, haven't they? They're making some moves. They're doing some stuff.
yeah, they are doing some stuff.
All right. So I mean, there's a whole discussion like talking in the chat here. We're gonna get to this cow swap integration. Trust me, it is high on my list. But we put revenue distribution down. We put revenue distribution down to get out of the way so that we can get on to the next item, and that is the cow swap integration. K-Mets, this is huge. It's huge. And the guy in chat that is talking right now, Cyril, we have got a lot to thank this man for. So like amazing as like we knew Cyril was bird dogging this thing, right?
That's
we
right.
knew he was out there hunting down ways to get the protocol mint and redeem integrated into aggregators, swap aggregators. And man, he nailed it. He got it. He finally, the loop closed. So Cyril,
Man,
awesome.
Yeah, yes.
Yeah. Thanks.
Yeah, great job, man.
That is amazing.
I'm pretty happy with that.
Yeah, it's such a big step. And I mean, I've talked about this before, and for the purposes of the recording, I know everybody on the call right now is a super paying attention Chad kind of player. But in case anybody who hasn't been following is wondering why we're so excited about this. So the thing about f of x is that this is FETH is a stablecoin that you can mint and redeem directly in response to demand for it. And for decentralized stablecoins, that is pretty rare, right? A lot of really decentralized stablecoins are minted with CDPs, which means somebody provides collateral and then they borrow against it. And what they borrow is this minted stablecoin. And so the fact that you can mint these stablecoins on demand means that we don't need to rely on secondary liquidity. We don't need to pay huge yields into a big stablecoin pool on Curve in order to have liquidity of this token for people to use, because you can directly mint and redeem it on the site. And so the one caveat to that is that if people don't use the site directly to mint and redeem, or use our contracts directly to mint and redeem, then they're stuck either using secondary liquidity or whatever. And for most swap aggregators, our minting and redeeming is not built into them, right? So we have been, Serial in particular, has been working this issue for a long time now, where if we can get the minting and redeeming integrated into these aggregators, then there is a zero slippage. Well, I mean, there's a minor slippage with the fee, but you're basically able to mint and redeem like any other kind of swap, and route that through the mint and redeem right at the aggregator level. And so it's huge. It's absolutely huge for FFX.
Yeah, I think once people sort of kind of realize sort of that that sort of like direct relationship between the minting and redeeming, and sort of like how you're basically swapping between a stable and stETH, it's pretty cool. So
yeah, exactly. Well, and just the ability to. Yeah, it's huge. It is absolutely enormous, and because it's FFX, the mechanism is only amazing if it can be if people use it, and if it's easy, right? Like if we had ended up in a situation where the only way to be in the aggregators was to build a deep liquidity pool on Curve, that would have been bad news. It's just a huge cost that the protocol doesn't need. One of the major superpowers of FFX is that we are like extremely profitable, and part of that is because of low liquidity costs.
Exactly. Yeah, and this just boosts that. So pretty exciting.
This was the missing piece to really be able to leverage those capabilities.
Yeah. So there
Love
you go,
it.
guys.
And DeFi Llama also picks up cow swap, so now anybody swapping through the DeFi Llama aggregator can do it. It's all. Oh, and I checked it out the other day. As soon as I heard, I jumped on to cow swap. I jumped on to DeFi Llama, and it is just a beautiful site. And then as soon as I went over, so I put in a bunch of numbers. Obviously my alt account is a super big whale. My main account is just a minimum. But like my alt is a big whale, and so I used my alt account to see how much I could swap for. And I think at the time, I don't know if that's still the case, but at the time there was like 400 ETH available before the cap.
Yeah.
And I went in, I typed, like 399, and I got like a zero slippage trade. And then I typed like 450. So I was over the limit. And then the slippage went to like 80% or something stupid.
Yeah. You come up against that.
I mean,
wall
you wouldn't want to swap that size of, and you wouldn't need to when you can mint. So it was just really nice to see it all working. And so kudos all
huge.
around, and yay.
And that was, so I mean, that's kind of one of the cool things about the Aladdin community is we encourage people to help us out with stuff like that. It's
and we get
cool.
huge support from the community, and we appreciate it. Ideas are always coming in. We're a small team, and definitely where people can help out, it's just we try to support that every way we can.
Yeah, absolutely. So thanks again, Cyril, man. Really appreciate
You're welcome.
it, dude.
And I actually have other news, because the way CowSwap works is that individuals solvers will provide the best routes, and they're kind of competing to provide the best routes, but they don't always provide the best routes. And the good news is that OpenOcean also rooted the protocol today. So now CowSwap is competing with OpenOcean, and that's why I said the best way is to use DeFi Llama, because I can share a screenshot. Let me check if I anonymized it first.
Good
Yeah.
thinking. Oh man, I suck at
I
Anon.
can say, yeah, you can take a look right on this screenshot. No, I don't know why it doesn't work. Let me.
Oh,
try
will it
again.
not
But
let you?
right
does it
now,
permission-
if you wanna swap, let's say 1,000 USDC to FETH, the best way would be to use the protocol itself. And if you check on DeFi Llama, you'll see that OpenOcean beats all the others, even CowSwap.
Oh wow.
Awesome.
And on the other way, if you want to swap, if you want to buy XETH, the best route right now is to buy on Curve, and you'll have the best routes using CowSwap, I believe.
Oh,
So
hot
that's
diggity.
the best way to do it is always to use DeFi Llama.
That's amazing.
Like all the time, actually.
yeah, yeah.
Ooh, boy.
Does DeFi Llama? Do you happen to know? This is a little off topic. Does DeFi Llama only include MEV protected swaps, or can you get into trouble that way?
Yeah, I believe there's an issue with that because it only gets CowSwap quotes, but
Right.
sometimes you get an even better quote after passing the transaction on CowSwap. So because the solvers can make better
Compete.
than the quote they gave in the first
Right.
place. So,
Right.
Hmm.
And what happened to 1inch? Yeah, and so we talked about 1inch was high on the list, but I think so. Like DeFi Llama and OpenOcean and CowSwap. I mean, this is kind of the floodgates. I don't know that
Yeah.
1inch is that important anymore, is it?
It's not, but I will just let them know that the others delivered. So maybe
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh,
with-
amazing.
the more competition we have on the quotes, the best it is.
That is huge,
Fantastic.
Cyril. That is a 1-2 punch, and we appreciate you and congratulations on that victory. That is awesome.
Thank you. I'm really
Well
happy
done.
with that.
Yeah.
All right. What? Wow. So that's two pretty big, exciting. We probably should have led with the CowSwap integration, K-Mets. I think we messed up.
Well, we got it in there.
We got it. in
we
there.
didn't run out of time.
Well, that's true. I mean, that would have been brutal if we'd have Charlined this thing, where we stick her in at the very end and then don't give her any time. That would have been brutal. But yeah, I mean, it's a little late to. DeFi Llama doesn't. All right.
Oh, no.
So, Paul says, really, it doesn't. Why? That's interesting.
Hmm.
Interesting.
Yeah,
OpenOcean
no
is
idea
there.
why. Yeah, OpenOcean is there in 1inch.
Well, we'll
Interesting.
figure it out.
Well, we'll figure it out. Yeah, let's we'll see what's wrong with Paul. Maybe he's been blacklisted. Paul, do you do a lot of business with international terrorists, or just the normal amount?
No, Cyril was right. So if I'm going with a higher amount, it works.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, you gotta start.
Okay.
You gotta start balling out, Paul. You gotta start to.
Yeah, you gotta.
Okay. All right.
All right. Okay. So
Paul.
we've got more FX stuff to talk about. Let's
Keep
let's
on
push
rolling,
on.
baby.
While Cyril educates Paul in chat.
Yeah.
All
All right. So
let's,
the next
what's
big
next?
thing, we got the Arbitrum liquidity gauge passed. So
So that's we have like a tri-pool on Arbitrum.
yeah, so it's a ETH, FETH, XETH pool on Curve on Arbitrum, and so right now it's basically unincentivized. But now that we have the gauge, we can start doing the thing we do, where we start
Get a little bit of reward
start
flowing
bribing,
into that pool?
incentivizing it. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Okay. Well, and that's nice because it's a way to earn the things we were talking about. We did that Arbitrum Twitter space, and I kind of, I don't say I put my foot in my mouth, but like you kind of want to talk about the rebalance pool because it's this amazing like staked ETH denominated real yield you need to earn on your stable FETH, which is all great if you're on mainnet. But
Mhm.
talking to the Arbitrum audience, and frankly, it's great if you're on mainnet and doing it in size where because even now gas is not that cheap.
Mhm.
It's up there a bit, but on Arbitrum, I'm talking about that, and then I'm kind of saying like, I mean, that yield benefits everybody because it pulls FETH out of the market into that rebalance pool, which kind of concentrates and focuses the rewards on the remaining people who happen to be liquidity mining, like people on Arbitrum. And so it's really great to get this gauge passed, because now this actually makes that true. So now you could actually, hold LP in this pool and be able to farm some curve rewards. So this is a big deal. And we talked also about our Arbitrum strategy. This is all about spreading the news. It's a first step onto L2s. There's a lot of additional steps that we are in the process of making. And I think we're going to have some cool stuff to share on that, maybe as soon as next week. But the key thing on Arbitrum right now is we want to get the tokens over there, get some liquidity over there, show people how they work, and give them a chance to actually get them in their hands, get them in their wallets, and then from there we start to grow and move on to possibly, and this is a minor alpha leak, K-Mets, hopefully I don't overstep, possibly some utility on Arbitrum for these bridge tokens. So I don't know. We'll see if it turns out. The way I think it's going to turn out. But we'll talk about that hopefully next week.
All right. Okay. Whew, man. Very excited.
Is right. Okay. So okay, we've got a question. Arrow says, can you please talk about the choice to move to Balancer? I think I read somewhere if I got details. That's, I think, where liquidity that liquidity is on. Charlene, can you comment on that? The Arbitrum liquidity?
Yeah, it's Tri Crypto Pool with FEs, Es, and XEs on Curve. The reason we deploy there, because we're part of Curve ecosystem. We definitely want to, earn fees and feed ourselves and the entire ecosystem. Balancer, right? I think that's a good place to look into as well. I think as we grow on Arbitrum, we can deploy liquidity on Balancer as well.
I think that if I am reading the question correctly, we had talked a long time ago. We had talked about using Balancer instead of Curve, and I think that's not how it ended up. We thought we were going to be forced into using. We thought that we were going to need to use Balancer because something. I believe there was like on Arbitrum there was like a technical feature of Curve that was missing, but I do remember. I think I know what Arrow's talking about. We were talking about this in the past.
Yeah. Because there's no V2 factory pool on Arbitrum, right? And so there's no pool like for volatile tokens.
Yeah.
But there is this NG pool, right? For tree tokens.
The NG,
so that works.
Yes, right. It's all coming back to me now. Yeah, because those factory pools are not yet available on Arbitrum, but we were able to do it as a tri pool. So we need strategic focus on building FETH or XETH pools on DEX. I think, Mr. Massa, yes. I mean, to a certain extent, but in fact, right now the FETH and the XETH that's on Arbitrum is all bridged from mainnet. And if we get to a place on Arbitrum where we have that level of demand, we've talked about this before, but one of the tools in our kit is actually to deploy a separate reserve fund on Arbitrum and basically have Arbitrum FETH and Arbitrum XETH. And the benefit to doing that is, of course, you move those rebalance yields over so that you have those native rebalance yields on Arbitrum, as well as you eliminate all of the bridge risk by doing that. So I think if we ever got to a place on Arbitrum or any L2 where there was where the demand was big enough, and I think we will get to that place, where there's enough demand and like utility and action and stuff happening, we would look at deploying a separate reserve fund for that L2.
Yeah. So that's kind of like, in the pipeline, we're just kind of like feeling things out right now. So nothing's nothing's figured out yet, but so
that's right. And so we actually don't. Okay, so mainnet FETH would be different from Arbitrum FETH, and their prices yes, that is absolutely the case. And because remember, the FETH price now, the unit price would be the same. The unit price would be the same. The fractional change would, sorry, the unit price would be different. The fractional change would be the same, assuming that both protocols remained healthy and stable. The XETH price would vary much more between the two protocols. So because remember the amount of price movement that the XETH experiences depends on the fraction of F to XETH, right? Like if there's a lot of volatility being focused onto that XETH, then it moves a lot more than if there's a little. So what you have is if you had multiple XETHs on different chains, they could have different instantaneous, call it leverage, equivalent leverage. And so their unit prices would diverge a lot.
Yeah, and as you could see, I mean, you're right, Cyril. That's sort of like one of the things that we have to sort of like take into account is just sort of like, is it how well can the community and understand
exactly
it, and how well can it be integrated in a way that it's graspable and be able to be utilized within those ecosystems.
And it's a constant struggle, right? It's a constant struggle of how you can add a lot of functionality and features, but you need basically they have to be good enough and important enough that people take the time to learn them, right? That users take the time to understand them, because if you deploy too much complexity before you've got the amount of attention required in order to have people actually grok that, then I think you get into trouble. So.
But
bridge tokens can be arbitraged, no question. But you must admit, bridge tokens have a bunch of extra security risks that native tokens do not. And again, think about those rebalance pool yields. You cannot get native rebalance pool yields on L2s. That the only way to earn those is on mainnet. So if it's a much more compelling FETH. FETH on Arbitrum is more compelling if it's native to Arbitrum than if it's on mainnet, in my opinion.
Yeah. So we can always that's a little ways off, sort of those the discussions, and we're happy to continue having those discussions with everyone.
Yeah,
so.
Exactly. And we probably shouldn't get too deep into the weeds here, but just in this call, just while we're recording, but definitely these are the things that we're thinking about. We have a lot of different sort of tools in the kit on how we can deploy, but for right now, the bridged liquidity is the starting point, and that's the starting point to begin educating the Arbinaut people, as well as things and starting to test Arbitrum to see what kind of interest we can drum up there. So Mr. Mas says the near future users use FETH pairs on Uniswap for swapping. Well, no, not necessarily, because now we're integrated into aggregators. This is why we're so excited about the CowSwap integration, is because now there's really easy ways to swap in size in and out of XETH and FETH without needing to have those very expensive liquidity pools.
Yeah.
So pretty big deal. Okay. What about WSETH? You can still have a claim on yield. I'm not sure I understand your question, Watrub. If you want to clarify that. In the meantime, we should push forward.
Yeah.
We got a little bit more to talk about with F of X, and we're gonna run out of time here. So we want to talk a little bit. Oh boy, listen. Let's just take a second. It's just gonna be like a little mini alpha leak, a short big alpha. I don't know. Listen. Let's just
could go anyway here, gang.
The architecture of F of X, we've talked about this before. I think everybody on the call kind of understands it. But at its most basic level, you have this reserve of some yield generating token, and you create these two derivatives, and the one derivative is the stable token. And the other derivative is the sort of leverage token or the high volatility token. And the stable token can be brought to the rebalance pool to earn yields from the reserve. So we talk about it in the context of FETH and XETH because those exist. And how amazing is it we can use our stable FETH to farm the ETH reserves without having to take any price exposure to ETH, or sorry, without taking much price exposure to ETH, without the volatility that comes with ETH. We enjoy the yields of ETH. That is a big darn deal. And this model, we've talked about this before, so there's not a huge novelty, but this model does not have to be limited to ETH. And the team
in fact,
is.
We mentioned it in the white paper. I mean, if folks go back and read the white paper. I mean,
For anybody who
mentioned
read that, yeah, that was the original alpha leak right there.
Yeah.
And so, you know, we wanted to bring you guys in a little bit to how the team is thinking about this next step for f of x and how to kind of get the most out of this mechanism. Step number one is fETH and xETH. We've talked before about how f of x was really invented in response to the you know, the whole USDC DPEG situation. We want to throw our hat in the ring as to make it truly scalable, properly decentralized, anchored in the Ethereum economy. You know, that's the whole idea of the 10% beta, where the fETH stablecoin still gets a little bit of that long-term crypto growth, which is acts like an inflation hedge, if you like, or whatever. That is kind of like product number one, the main sort of thing of f of x. fETH is always going to be the scalable stablecoin solution.
Yeah, it's our flagship, right?
And that's the flagship for sure. And the point of fETH is to build incredible liquidity, and that liquidity doesn't need to be on secondary. It can be just size of reserve and, you know, size of rebalance pool or whatever. But we want to get f of ETH as liquid and as useful, and you know, bring utility to it for people to use in other places, and really present fETH as a this is a decentralized stablecoin that you can build on top of. But the mechanism, like I talked about, we have this capability with what we've built to create this system where you can farm yields from a yield-bearing token without taking any of the volatility of the like price of that token. And so we are now talking to partners and looking across the sort of world of yield-bearing tokens and looking at ways to deploy the f of x to those tokens. And now these kinds of things, if you can imagine your favorite yield-bearing token, we want to give basically farmers the opportunity to farm those yields without having to take price exposure, and we want to give the degens the ability to grab that like quote unquote leverage, we'll call it the high volatility growth from price speculation, right? Like farmers don't really necessarily want to speculate on price. And so this really is a pretty awesome mechanism. The way we see these fitting into f of x is the stable versions of these tokens, of these yield-bearing tokens, these sorts of F versions, would most likely, we envision them entirely going into the rebalance pool. So the purpose of minting an F token against whatever your yield-bearing reserve is mainly to farm the yields of that reserve, right? As opposed to having those F tokens try to be like high liquidity stablecoins on their own. That's not really the idea, because the idea is not to make a whole raft of different things to compete with fETH. The idea is to create these really nice farming opportunities and leverage opportunities for traders and farmers to come together and basically be able to use this mechanism so that everybody can get what they want. And then obviously the people who really get what they want, in addition to those two groups, are the VEFXN token holders, because that just forms yet another revenue stream that flows into the protocol revenue.
Yeah.
So
it's a very powerful system. I mean, you know, and it can be applied in a lot of different areas. So
absolutely. And so there's two things that we want to talk about. We're thinking internally about, you know, obviously lots of questions in chat about which tokens are we starting with, when is it coming. Which tokens are we starting with? One idea that we have that we're looking at using is basically we want to let people vote with their capital. These things need a certain amount of demand in order to work correctly. And so what we might do is basically create voting vaults where if people want to vote for a particular yield-bearing token, They deposit their token in the vault, and then we say once the vault meets some certain TVL, it gets automatically, that triggers us to deploy the f of x for that token. And so that would really give us a really concrete way to make sure that we are deploying vaults that there's actually demand for. And then people can, protocols, these things are really nice for protocols because it's a way for them to build liquidity. They can, it's a productive way for people to come and farm their token and speculate on their token. Like it's really high utility for the tokens that are held in the reserve. So the protocols themselves might want to encourage people to deposit in those vaults and to create those FX pairs, because those FX pairs are going to be really beneficial to the underlying protocol. And by the way, you might want to consider that just like with the rebalance gauge for FETH, each of the other F token pairs will have their own rebalance pool. That's how you farm those underlying yields, but they will also have FXN gauges. And so there will be a
chart again.
there's going to be a time in the future where each different F and X pair for a token is able to be able to be incentivized with FXN emissions through the VE-FXN voting. And so that's another big important thing for VE-FXN folks.
That's quite an unlock.
And probably CVX and SDFXN people pretty excited about that as well. So essentially, you're now going to be able to, basically protocols are going to be able to fight over how much of their token liquidity gets sucked into f of x. Yeah.
So it's going to be pretty cool.
And so the when people, I've got the information that you need right here.
Sometime in 2027, wasn't that right? Yeah. No.
It's
soon.
It's coming, and so, but it's not. We're not talking a long way off here, friends. We're talking, if for any of the technically minded people who have been looking at our code being checked in on GitHub, since we build in the open.
That's right.
You're going to be able to get a sense that that the capability is she coming.
Yeah,
she coming. So it's not far off. But I'm not going to give anything more specific than that now. Next question. Now, here, one more thing before we move on, as it's 9:52 and we haven't got to our second agenda item.
Good Lord, yeah.
Well, luckily there's not too much more to do. So
yeah, we're good.
We do want to ask the community an opinion. This is something we've been talking about a lot internally, and so we're curious to hear what people think. For these F and X pairs on farming tokens. So we're not talking about FETH and XETH anymore. We're talking about the sort of the farming and speculating pairs that we're going to deploy for whichever tokens, however we end up choosing those tokens that are going to be deployed to have their own reserves. The question is, do we keep the 0.1 beta for the F tokens for these farming pairs, or do we consider a 0 beta? So we can make those 0 beta so that they're essentially USD, that the farming tokens are USD pegged. And there's a lot of benefits to doing that. The only drawback that I can think of to doing that is that just the sort of the confusion that it creates around FETH, because FETH is definitely the 0.1 beta thing. There's we're still pretty happy with that decision.
Yeah.
We think that's pretty powerful, and it's it makes things a little harder to understand, but we think that makes FETH a better token, a better stablecoin to base decentralized DeFi on.
There you go.
But these farming tokens, definitely we can consider a 0 beta, which makes them straight USD pegged. It does increase the leverage a little bit, but there's other
There are
potential
other
benefits down the line.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
Nothing we're going to talk about, but
No.
but having beta of 0 gives a little bit more flexibility down the line.
But we certainly, we really appreciate any input. I mean, we want to make sure that these are products that are desired and that people want to utilize. So
Yeah, exactly. And so you're right. 0 beta, it definitely makes sense. There's no question about that. I really think the only drawback is that we would have that FETH would be completely different in that it would have the non-zero beta compared to all the other F tokens.
real quick, Arrow brings up what is 0 beta. So okay, that's thanks for bringing us back in there.
Yeah,
Arrow.
reeling us in.
Yeah. So for FETH, right, the beta is 0.1, and what that means is that it's the relationship between the price movements of ETH and FETH. So if you had a beta of 1, they would move identically, right? If you had a beta of 0.5, then FETH would move it at half the price movements of native ETH. At 0.1, which is what FETH is pegged at, it moves at 1/10, right? So if ETH had a 10% price movement, FETH would move at 1%, right? And so when we talk about having a 0 beta means that it would not move regardless of ETH or whatever the underlying token's price movement would be. So so it would just stay at $1 or whatever. Yeah,
It would stay at $1. Yeah, exactly. It would basically be a pegged stablecoin at that point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And one of there were a bunch of reasons to not have FETH as a dollar pegged stablecoin. Or mild deflate. Yeah. So that's, as Mr. Massa says, one of the things that makes FETH, the 0.1 beta means that if you think ETH is going to grow faster than fiat, if you think over the long run crypto is going to accrue more value than fiat, then you want to keep a little bit of exposure to that price, right? And basically, you can call it an inflation hedge or a deflationary, as Mr. Massa likes to call it. But it gives you that. It gives you that ability to anchor your stablecoin. You still have the low volatility, but be anchored in the like crypto world. So if all of crypto grows, you're kind of coming along and a little bit more anchored in that economy. But that's a pretty unique feature of FETH. And so the question to the community is, do we think that it's too confusing to have the FETH be this beta of 0.1 and everything else be 0? Or do you think we can educate our way around that, in which case the FETH, the beta of 0 for all of the non-FETH F tokens would be the way to go?
Yeah. I mean, obviously, on the website there would be like information explaining that as well. So
exactly, yeah. Again, we can, and I mean, I'm getting the vague sense that CryptoVestor may be in support of 0.
Where are you seeing that? I haven't seen him give
volatility for those sorts. I'm not sure.
anywhere.
We'll have to ask him to clarify because he's not being clear.
He's so quiet and shy and just bashful.
We love you, man. We love having you here.
Absolutely.
Okay, so can beta be
All right.
changed afterwards? Can VEFXN handle this voltage change? That is a good question. I think we'd have to go think about that, whether there would be any like implications to beta changes in midstream. Yeah, something to think about. Now, another one of the things that we're talking about internally is that for these farming things on these even more volatile than ETH type tokens, the best way for them to work is to basically have all the FETH in the rebalance pool, right? It prevents that whole mechanism from destabilizing, but it does mean that when you're farming yields, if the price goes drops like a stone on you crazily, there's probably a higher chance of redemption in the rebalance pool for those tokens. And so that's just something we're thinking about. It's not a problem. It's just basically a feature or an aspect to that.
Yeah.
So
that's kind of, gosh, that's
Holy
really
cow.
FX for the week. Holy smokes!
Yeah.
I don't think
58 minutes later.
Yeah, I don't think we've chewed up 58 minutes with FX before, but that was pretty good.
Yeah. Well, we
Good discussion, though.
We spewed out like 10 minutes of bullshit at the beginning too, so don't forget
Well,
about
that's
that.
true.
Okay, guys. We've got a few other things to get through. I think we're gonna have to kind of jump through it relatively quickly. CoinGecko to add a new tab to the website. Yeah, Ubiquitous, we've been chasing this one down for quite a long time. We appreciate that, and we're gonna jump back in again and push harder again. We know that that's a an issue, and that it helps so much to have those numbers correct on CoinGecko. So we're gonna fair enough. Thank you for the comment and the kick in the pants. We'll follow up yet again on that and see if we can get them to bloody integrate it.
Yeah.
Come on,
We're doing
guys.
our best.
Come on, CoinGecko. Come on.
Okay, so let's really, so the only other stuff that we really have that we really want to convey on the call, and I'll kind of jump to Clever here real quick. Clever, harvest round 57 completed. So those rewards will be coming out tonight. Well, tonight for me, but
Yeah.
it's like 11:59 UTC or midnight UTC. So as always, you can expect to be able to collect those. And if you've been in the CVX side of Clever, you'll know. Oh, did somebody say something?
No, continue.
Okay. Clev CVX is just about all the minting capability of Clev CVX is just about drip dry. So once we hit that magic 2 million mark, we will reload that baby. So keep your eyes peeled for that.
Yeah, we'll tweet about that when it happens.
Yeah. For Concentrator, gosh, we don't have a whole lot of updates this week for Concentrator, really.
Yeah, nothing public anyway, as usual.
Nothing
Still ducking. We're still ducking.
Ducks are paddling under the water, that's for sure. Yeah, absolutely. Let's be clear. We're working on everything over here.
Yeah. Got a lot of fingers, and each of them has a pie. K-Mets. Each of them. So that's
yes.
Even the thumbs, man. Even the thumbs.
Even the thumbs.
One other thing. So we are watch the forum. So we are going to be posting to the forum very soon after this call. We've talked about this in the past. We are in the middle of an ALD tokenomic restructure. ALD, the redheaded stepchild of the Aladdin ecosystem, has been sadly forgotten for too long, and so it's time to make ALD that first-class citizen. Tao, super community member Tao, who is on the call. Hey man, welcome. Thank you so much for all of your hard work. You have done a lot of stuff on this, and
oh man, yeah, absolutely.
And we are, the team is doing our part now, catching up to you basically, and we're looking at rolling out. We talked about this the other week, and we had some good support for it in the community call. So we're looking at rolling out changes on a step-by-step basis. The first change, which we are going to outline briefly in the forum today, is we're going to cut the maximum supply of ALD from 1 billion to 150 million. So we're going to cut the maximum supply and therefore the FDV of ALD by 85%. The thinking here is that, just briefly, essentially under the old tokenomic model, which was designed in 2021, which has a few vestigial things that don't really support the protocol anymore, and some mechanisms that are have been shown to be not really as effective as we hoped they would be, as we thought they would be. Essentially, we're in the process of migrating all that, and the old mechanisms did rely on the ability to sort of continue to mint ALD tokens. And we've over the last 2 years, we have lasered in on a process that does not require that at all. And so those huge unminted, that huge unminted amount of maximum supply, which the protocol has no, since the change to our new structure, we've no plan to actually mint out. It's just kind of like an albatross hanging around our neck, and there's really no need for it. So we're looking at a proposal to hard cut that maximum supply down to 150 million, which is less than 10, I believe, above the total supply right now. So the FDV will be brought in line with the market cap.
That's right. Number go down technology coming to you soon. So there you go.
So check the forum out, comment as you like, and definitely we're going to run that guy on Snapshot. I think it's going to be pretty non-controversial. Aladdin holders are going to be a lot happier to not have the possibility of those extra tokens getting minted out, and so I think it will probably pass easily. But we will run it through a Snapshot vote all the same, probably a 3-day one, I would guess.
Absolutely. Yep, like we always do, out in the open in public. Yep.
And yeah, and then cut that down, and we're going to look at a phase 2 proposal, which is going to dig into some of the stuff that Tao has already worked on, and we're going to look at that coming out. Sort of, we're looking at dripping these things out step by step. Nice, clear, easy to understand changes as much as possible for the token holders, so that rather than rolling out a whole bunch at once.
You heard right, Ubiquitous.
You
1
did
billion
so.
to 150 million.
Yeah, that's the well, it's the maximum supply. So the total supply, the number that are currently minted out is like 140 something million. But the maximum supply, like within the contract, the maximum is 1 billion. And the protocol does not need that capability. That's not we did at the time, we don't now, and so let's get rid of it. Let's kill it. Let's kill it.
Yeah.
We don't need it.
Let's make everything better, shall we? So
That's a
there you
great
go.
attitude.
I
K-Mets.
mean, why not?
That's
Why
why,
not?
you know what? It's why we have you around here.
Well,
I like to
appreciate
make things better unless there's a great trolling opportunity, and then I like to make them worse.
which is like a fantastic addition as well. So
Yeah, I mean, it's good to have you around, I think, because
yeah. Well,
I would get into trouble.
I appreciate that. Yeah, I'll take some heat off you, buddy.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Yeah, just like, Kruger, dude, this is not a good idea. You need to stop. And I say,
All right,
no
everybody.
dice.
We made it to 9:05. You made it. That's
We all
it.
did it together. We all did it together. Thank you, everybody, for showing up. It was awesome to have you here. Really appreciate all the action in chat and all the questions. Love that people are paying attention. Looking for your feedback. We asked the community a few questions. We're still going to have to clarify with CryptoVestor, but we are interested in what everybody else thinks as well. So please do send us either in Discord or DMs or however you like to do it. Send us your thoughts and give us any feedback on if you like what we're up to or if you don't or what.
Yep, and I will be posting the notes from the community call here in just a little bit. So
Awesome.
thanks again, guys. We appreciate it, and we will be available in the Discord to chit chat and answer questions, and we'll talk to you later.
Do what we
Thanks,
do.
everybody.
Thanks for coming. Same time
All right.
next week, everybody.
Yep.
Cheers, everyone. See you
Bye.
Bye.